People who have been on dead people's computers. Did you find anything you wish you hadn't? I received a computer for Christmas that was previously owned by some old guy. My parents bought it at an estate sale, so it was pretty cheap. Anyways, I start looking through the documents and there was a folder named Jessica's Farm. My young mind was not prepared to see hundreds, and I mean hundreds of pictures of this guy's wife posing nude on horses. The image of an old, wrinkly lady riding horses if forever burned into my brain. I actually really like this story. They were married for who knows how long, and she was still his fantasy, his own personal Lady Godiva. Any of us can only hope for this kind of commitment in a marriage. When my grandfather passed away, I was asked to go through his computer and save anything valuable. There were heaps of letters and photos dedicated to all his children and grandchildren. I even found a speech he would say at my 21st. I'm only 18. You should print it out and frame it when you graduate. Keep it as motivation and a reminder how your grandpa believed in you. Turns out my brother was writing a novel and a ton of poetry. I always wonder if we should do something with it. I'm not sure how completed it all is, but my cousin who went through it said it was quite a bit of material. Confederacy of Dunces wouldn't have gotten published if the author's mother hadn't gone around to every publisher after he died. Go for it, man. My best friend's machine. The usually cluttered desktop given way to a single, untitled text document. It was his suicide note. I'm so sorry for you. I found my father's suicide letter that he didn't go through with. We were mostly estranged, but I kept visiting my very young half-brother and half-sister. In it, he was dismissive of me and I still can't find my way to forgive it. A few months after my wife passed away suddenly, I finally got around to cleaning out her PC and laptop. I'd barely gotten started when I came across a file that had its file associations removed. She did all the financial stuff, so I had to find out if it was something important. Of course, my first try was Word document, and sure enough it loaded up. Yeah, it wasn't financial. Turns out she'd written a list of lifetime goals that she wanted to reach, and it had been updated only weeks before she passed. A list of about 30 things she'd dreamed of doing, and only about 4 or 5 were crossed off. I didn't get much done after that. My mother went on my older sister's computer after she died from cancer and found a letter meant for my sister's 2 children which said how horrible my mother was. My sister was pretty angry at life in the final months and seemed to blame my mom for everything. Needless to say, my mom was devastated. I'm suffering from stage IV colorectal cancer. I'm 31 and my mom is my caregiver. Sometimes you just get freaking pee and you go for the nearest target. It doesn't mean you don't love the person. It's also not right, but it happens. If her situation was anything like mine, she still loved your mom with every ounce of her being. I wasn't on the computer but my PlayStation. A friend of mine who passed from a brain tumor is still on my friends list. Around the time Sony was hacked by Anonymous, his account came online. It really freaked me out. My mum's Mini is still on my Wii, and now on the Wii U and my 3DS. Whenever I come jogging past on Wii Fit she cheers for me. It makes me happy every time. My family found a 3-ring binder my grandmother kept. It was full of lusty love letters. We asked one of her best friends about it, and she replied with, "Oh yeah, I was supposed to burn that." Apparently, my grandma and this guy had a relationship where they never actually got together, but had lots of phone sex. None of that is quite so bad, I guess, unless you start imagining that it was your grandma. She described many details of their talks in her letters and referred to it all as a year of passion. Grandma's friend kinda dropped the ball on that one. Finding my grandfather's suicide note was pretty heart-wrenching. I ended up getting his computer when he passed. Spent some time going through all the funny chainmail pictures he had kept, and it turns out he had saved it to the same folder. My roommate passed away in a car accident. I deleted all the questionable content from his computer and threw away his P before his family came and went through his stuff. You're a good roommate. I had a dead man's computer brought in for clean and repair by his granddaughter as she was going to be using it now he had passed on. In the DVD drive was a P movie. I can't remember the title but it was outrageous like CM guzzling S6. Well, maybe not that outrageous. However, after repairing the computer I kept the DVD in the shop, you know, to protect Gramps' dignity etc. My father died a few years ago from colon cancer. Even though I was only 19, my brother was significantly younger when we lost him. He was 7. My father and brother would watch a movie usually every other night, and a few months ago I finally got around to cleaning up his computer. I looked through his folder where he downloaded movies to, and the last film he downloaded was Spirited Away, and it was the night before he passed away. Needless to say, we watched it together that night. That's a send-off movie if I ever saw one. When I was 18, I took my older brother's computer after he died in a car crash. He was the sort of guy that people loved to be around, always laughing, joking. He made people feel good about themselves. His car had run into a grouping of those cement jersey barriers on a road under construction. No other cars were involved, and there were no signs that he had hit the brakes. He must have dozed off. While emptying his room in his house, we found a set of crumpled papers. They were the unfinished first sentences of suicide notes. But he never left a completed note, and instead chose to throw these drafts away. Maybe he sat down to write a note, decided he didn't want to die, needed some air, went for a drive, got into an accident. I couldn't understand how this happy, great guy that I loved could be so unhappy. So I searched his computer for any clues. I was prepared to look in every corner for a clue, an internet history, an AIM log. This was back in the day, a photo, an email, anything. There was nothing. Not just nothing strange, nothing at all. He had already wiped his computer clean, probably anticipating that his little brother would inherit his computer and snoop around. It still doesn't confirm or deny anything for me. I feel certain that he intended to kill himself, but I've never been more upset to find absolutely nothing. After reading all these stories, this seems worse than actually finding something. Was tasked by a friend of a parent to wipe a computer that belonged to his son who committed suicide. I could have just wiped it, but a morbid curiosity and a feeling I was erasing the last of this person drove me to first delve into the files. What I found was essentially a diary of the son's last days, including his very last, which had been typed just minutes before he ended his life. There was something profound in reading those notes, knowing I am the only one who will ever know his last thoughts. I don't really regret or wish I hadn't seen what I did. The last time I shared this experience, I was made to feel guilty for invading the dead son's privacy. I still feel a little guilty for that, but I'm still glad I did so. The kid needed someone to listen to him, and well, even though it was too late, someone did. It's just a shame it couldn't have been earlier. I'm glad you listened. I'm sure the reason he left it behind was that someone could listen to him. Oh, good. This story. So my uncle took crap tons of pictures, just all the dang time. We didn't actually realize the scale of this until I had to look through them all after he died. Turns out we could have lost every single picture ever taken of me, my sister, my cousins, and still we'd have a remarkably smooth transition from infant to adult in picture form. That said, we also discovered he liked pee so much. And since we didn't want to accidentally throw away some priceless picture, I had to go through 3 hard drives and a couple hundred USBs and CDs of almost entirely P. Now I was more impressed with his capacity to find and organize things than anything else. 4 gigabytes of named, time-stamped videos and pictures of trans women with freakishly large breast implants urinating on men. We have the USB for that right this way. Dude, I am sure someone would buy that collection. My boss passed away in his sleep just over a year ago. He was young, and it was unexpected. I helped his boss get into his computer at work, and also his laptop from home to retrieve insurance, banking, investment, etc. information for my boss's family. It was very eerie, in that I found my boss had a lot of the same tastes in music, TV shows, movies, etc. that I had, visited the same websites, etc. I felt like he and I could have become much better friends if there had been more time. I ended up getting almost everything for them. There were a couple of Excel files with financials that were password protected. I ran some brute force programs against them for a few weeks, but eventually my boss had me shut it down, and then it was over. And so now I sit at his desk, on his computer, using his mouse and his keyboard, and do his job. I like to think he's out there, somewhere, watching over me, and that he'd be happy with what I've done in the last year. I hope so, at any rate. Not a personal computer, but my local library has a set of computers in there and people can get usernames, passwords and use the virtual desktops. Given they have a library card, this old guy would use the computer a lot. I wasn't nosy so I never looked in depth, but he was using a word processor so I assumed he was typing letters or something similar. Anyway, I volunteered there over the summer, and I had to close out inactive library cards, or ones that hadn't paid dues. Basically this meant I was deleting accounts by logging onto their virtual desktops and cleaning them out. The old man showed up in the lineup. Turns out he died a few months before. I opened up his desktop and went to documents, because curiosity got the better of me and I wanted to see if he had anything some relatives wanted or something. There was his life, encompassed in 2 folders. Folder 1, novel. He was writing a memoir of his tales in World War II. Folder 2, Missy. Missy, from what I could collect, was his wife. In it were dozens, if not over 100 documents of love poems and letters to her. I backed them up on a USB and intended to return them to his wife. I'm sure she would want love letters. As it were, the wife was dead and he was buried next to her in the cemetery. I was sad, because these were letters to his long dead wife. She had died in 2004. I gave the files to his son, who read them out loud at the old man's annual memorial mass as a eulogy and testimony to the love of his wife. My girlfriend and I used to play Pokemon a lot. I still do actually, but she passed away in a car accident a year ago. One day I opened one of her games up cause I was feeling down, and I noticed her main player was named after me, and all her Pokemon were nicknamed after pet names we gave to each other. The thing is, I did the exact same thing in my game, but we never told each other. After my dad died we found a bunch of pictures of a kid who looked a lot like my younger brother. After some digging around we found out my dad had an affair with some married lady about 12 years prior. She got pregnant and the boy is being raised by her husband as their son. My understanding of the situation is that the boy has no idea about my dad. My brothers and I discussed whether or not we were going to tell him and we decided it was best to let the kid be raised by his parents without him knowing. My boyfriend passed away in December. I put his PlayStation on and play with the little FIFA character we made look like him. I know he would be laughing at how bad I was trying to score. I also saw his old phone. There was a message from a girl basically asking to go on a date, but he had texted her back saying he was actually in a new relationship, me, and it made me feel quite good. I trusted him completely anyway. I miss him every second. I'm so sorry for your loss. I hope you're doing okay. I'm glad you were able to find a little reminder after his passing that he loved you. My best friend died in a car accident almost 5 months ago. I nearly had a heart attack when, over a month after it happened, my Facebook newsfeed notified me that she had changed her profile picture. Turns out, her husband had changed it to his favorite picture of her. Feels were felt. A while back, my cousin committed suicide while his family was out of town. We had been pretty close growing up, so I flew across the country to spend a couple weeks helping his widow with their 2 kids, 4 and 1.5 years old. Found a bunch of audio files on his computer of him playing with his son, teaching him songs, ABCs, laughing and whatnot. I uploaded them to my Angelfire account to keep that small part of him in my life. It kind of wrecked me for a while and I couldn't listen to them again, just squirreled them away. A couple years later I went to retrieve them only to find Angelfire basically defunct and the account gone. On that same trip, I had found out some things about his widow and their relationship that led to my cousin's suicide, and have not spoken to her since, so getting them from her is out of the question. It's been over 10 years and the sound of his voice on those files, so happy and joyful, still haunts me. I wish I still had them. All I have of him is sad memories. No, but I got an old computer from church once. They upgraded and donated it to us. It was filled with horse pee. I don't go to that church anymore. Here is the church. Here is the stables. Open the doors. Horse pee. After my father died, my mom found explicit emails to other men on his computer. She had her suspicions before and took it in stride, realizing that despite being bisexual, they still had a good love life that didn't change how he felt about her and her family. Admirable woman, my mother. I sometimes help out at a charity that ensures sex workers have access to condoms and can reach out to police if they suffer violence, etc. At one point we threw a fundraiser that sold art created by former or occasionally current sex workers and showcased the art of one deceased woman in particular, who I believe was about to begin transitioning to a man. I was given her hard drive through a friend of the family that worked at the organization and asked to retrieve what I could of her art and her life. My memory is a little fuzzy on most of this, but I think her death happened in the early 2000s. She had a fairly large Napster directory, and I think it was a Windows XP machine. To be honest, I don't think I found anything I wish I hadn't. Instead, I found a trove of beautiful art and a small window into someone's life. She was both a hobbyist and a professional photographer who had a webcam she made good use of. I saw her travels to India and South America. I saw friends of all shapes and sizes, mainly muscular and heavily tattooed, and action shots of her and her girlfriend. She had an active social life, and in most ways, she was just like the rest of us. I feel odd typing it, but I would have felt very voyeuristic if she was still alive. As it were, I didn't worry about it much, and instead thought of it was a very serious responsibility, I guess. Ultimately, I found a reminder that even people who do work that's derided or considered dehumanizing by some still led normal and wonderful lives just like the rest of us, with the same struggles and joys and trials and tribulations. I'm glad I got to experience it. Well, it's my cousin and it's on a smartphone. The nurses at the hospital gave my cousin his dad's belongings when his dad passed away, and it included his cell phone. That's how he found out his dad's a cheating bastard and a drug addict. He talked to me about it, and I had to confess I knew about it, but I didn't want to tell him about it unless he asked me since I didn't want to ruin his image of his dad. He decided not to tell his mom to leave her with great memories. She never knew since her husband was always busy and going on business trips. My mom's last husband died Christmas Eve when we crossed lanes on the highway and went headfirst into a snowplow. She found out he was doing drugs when the autopsy found it and his life insurance didn't pay out. He was kind of a dong like that. If I was sent to one of these camps, though England isn't so backwards I don't think, I would flirt with the counselors even if they were ugly just to make them feel uncomfortable and let them know that no, I don't want to and aren't going to change. Hashtag feature me, LMFO. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.